There's actually an estimate of up to 1 billion birds killed in the U.S. from window collisions. The number of birds killed by buildings has been studied for the last 30 years, with many cities sending out volunteers to collect and document the strikes. So you may ask, why don't we see dead birds everywhere? Well, early in the morning, maintenance people pick them up, the birds may fall on hard-to-reach places, and most are picked up by scavengers.
Glass is something that birds are unable to see, and it doesn't matter if it's a small piece of glass or a 100-story building. It's dangerous.
Not all windowed buildings are created equal when it comes to bird deaths. Buildings that are next to natural areas and those that reflect trees and other vegetation tend to be the worst offenders. The first 40 to 60 feet of the building is the most dangerous. Lights from buildings can also attract migrating birds into the cities. Artificial lights from human civilization can confuse them. Storms also disorient and exhaust birds who find themselves in the maze of city buildings the next morning. The most at-risk birds are young fledglings and migrating songbirds who are not accustomed to the city. Many species are dropping in numbers dramatically, such as the rufous hummingbird, who has lost 60% of its population. When birds hit the windows, their brains swell and herniate. For birds that do survive the fall but are injured, they can be taken to wildlife care facilities like Portland's Audubon Society.
A gentleman just brought in a berry thrush that he found outside of his house. It's quite possible that it was a window strike because as they move around, as they migrate, the berry thrushes certainly hit windows. We see that. And it had signs that are classical of a window strike. It was stunned, had signs of a head injury, head tilting, couldn't use its leg. Here we get about 3,000 animals through a year from the Portland metropolitan area mainly. We get all kinds of birds, particularly during migration, that are window strikes. When we get an animal in that's been sick or injured or orphaned, we do an intake, we do an exam, just like any other veterinary clinic, and then follow through with treatment if we can. And the ultimate goal is always release back into the wild.
So what can we do to help the birds from being injured in the first place? Christine Shepard from the American Bird Conservancy has been researching this.
What we're trying to do is find visual symbols that say to a bird, oh, I better not fly that way because I can't get through there. The bird is in a dark space, and about 30 feet away from it, they basically see a very bright area with a line down the middle because we have mounted 2 panes of glass down there. Birds in most dimensions have better vision than we do, but they have worse contrast sensitivity than people do, which means that a given pattern either has to be bigger or closer for birds to see it as well as we do.
Based on Christine's research, which correlates with the abilities of most birds like the barn swallow you see here, birds will generally not try to fly between spaces greater than 2 inches horizontally or 4 inches vertically. This allows us to start creating patterns to deter birds from running into our glass. We know that birds can see in the ultraviolet spectrum much better than we can. One way scientists found this out was by observing spider webs. Spiders don't want birds to run into their webs, so they spin their webs with a silk that reflects UV light. Now that we know why birds run into windows, and a little about what can make a window visible to birds, we can start to find solutions. Move your bird feeder within 3 feet of your window or further than 30 feet. You can use window tape placed in a 2-inch or 4-inch stripe or in other creative patterns. Window films like Kaleidoscape allow you to see out and help with privacy. You can buy decals, but note that one hawk will not do the trick. You need to think about the 2x4 rule. Another solution, ultraviolet paint, is probably the least obtrusive for the human eye while allowing the bird to see the window. At the Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, environmental law students were noticing that birds were hitting their library windows and dying at an alarming rate. they came up with the solution of removable screens that they put up every migration period. Designers of new buildings can follow the City of Portland's volunteer program for Portland's Bird-Friendly Building Design, or the USGBC's LEED Pilot Credit 55. An innovative option to reduce bird strikes is to use Ornolux glass, which has an embedded UV pattern based on the spider web. Other strategies, such as reducing overall amounts of glass, using fritted glass, factory etched and baked on paint finishes, or using louvers or grates in front of the glass are all great strategies. You may ask, how can we justify the costs associated with bird-friendly design? By turning off the lights, you won't attract birds into the city, and you will save energy. Here you see etching that was used to help with privacy, but it would work just as well for bird-friendly design. At Portland's Edith Green building, louvers were used to reduce solar heat gain, but may also be helpful at deterring bird strikes. At Willamette Park, the architects for the city's new low-water pump station recently created a bird-friendly building design.
Not only is this a Portland Water Bureau project, but it's set in Willamette Park. Since this project is in a park and it's on the Pacific Flyway migratory route, we wanted to do everything we could to prevent bird strike. We used the bird-friendly design guide that the Audubon Society and the city partnered on, and I worked directly with Candace Larson at the Audubon Society, who is a great resource. And we did our own research as well. That's how we developed those design strategies. The building's a concrete building, and we're using a formliner pattern to add some texture to the concrete. And that is this pattern right here, or at least a sample of it. And so what a very talented colleague in my office did was come up with a pattern for the glass based on the shadows that this formliner texture will create. And so we're trying to tie all these materials together in a way with this texture, and so that's what you're seeing here is a abstraction of the shadows of the formliner texture. And this pattern conforms to the 2x4 rule set forth in the bird-friendly design guidelines. The other thing is the Water Bureau has committed to only keeping the interior lights on as little as possible to not draw birds into the building via the interior lights, and also the exterior lights are full cutoff, so that means no light will shine up into the atmosphere, drawing birds in that way. Once you start looking into the issue, the numbers of fatalities are pretty staggering. If we as architects and design professionals can make fairly small moves, design moves to our buildings and save some birds' lives, then it seems like a smart and ethical and earth-friendly thing to do.
Other than loss of habitat, windows are the greatest human cause of bird deaths. If we just take a moment when we are designing our buildings to consider the other inhabitants of the earth, we can make a huge difference to their survival.